FearnutZ, it's a show where two guys talk to you. Even though you can't talk back, Mr. Beatnuts will feel so much to talking guys. Last 30 minutes to an hour, those two guys that I mentioned have a show named FearnutZ. And you should watch it right now.
Hello and welcome back to the FearnutZ Hour. We are here in Season 2. We're going to be trying a new format this season because, one, we had a lot of scheduling issues. As you may notice, we are in a new location. We also moved, so that was another reason why we had the long break. But as you know, I'm Mr. Beatnuts. Along with me always is Fearsome, so let's dive into what the plan is for this season.
We're still going to try and do a joint episode between the two of us, about half hour. Probably only going to make it around to that about once a month though, but because we both are still like trying out a lot of new movies and games and stuff that we're going to be reviewing, we'll still do those from time to time individually. And so look for that to happen probably on a weekly basis. We'll each do like a little 5 to 15 minute segment and put them out individually.
Yeah. And you may also notice that we put Season 1 into a playlist. What we're also going to do is put the episodes as Season 2 in a playlist and then have a special playlist called FearnutZ Reviews, which is going to cover both game and movie reviews, plus just there may be a few random topics that we talk about, not for a full half hour, that will also go under the Season 2 headline. So on today's episode, what do we have planned?
Today, Brandon wants to rant about the lack of heroes in America as he sees it today, and also gonna rant about some of those people that are like the anti-heroes or douchebags of our time.
Yeah, that's going to be the main topic, and this was brought up with the passing of Neil Armstrong this week. Now, Neil Armstrong was a true American hero. He's the first person to ever walk on the face of the moon. He did something great, and what was great about him, he was humble about it. He never once asked to be named a hero. What he did for his country, and he was proud to do it. Yet, in today's world, I guarantee you, there are more 20-somethings who know who Snooki is than know who Neil Armstrong is. And that is extremely sad that that is the role model we have for this generation growing up right now. We just had huge cuts to the NASA budget. And, the first person, now that they're privatizing space exploration, is going to be planting a Starbucks flag, not an American flag, when we land on Mars. And that's just kind of a sad statement to be made, but it's probably going to end up being true because it's going to be a private corporation that's going to probably land on Mars first. So that's, it's frustrating that due to just numerous cuts in this, that, and the other, that NASA has taken such a big hit when it was such a big part of my life growing up. I was always really big into covering or following what NASA was doing. I'm really excited to follow the current Mars rover. Watch that when it landed live, or live-ish, because there's the delay. But yeah, it's just, what are your thoughts on this?
My thoughts are, if we're lucky, we'll get to see a Jersey Shore Moon edition in the near future. I mean, you got to think that it's entirely possible they'll want to put somebody bankable on the rovers and missions in the future.
That is true. That is true. So, all right, let's move on to our next topic, which a lot of our fans aren't big into mixed martial arts, but there was a lot that happened in mixed martial arts, and it just happened recently. And I'm of course talking about the light heavyweight champion Johnny Bones Jones becoming a complete bitch and ducking Kiel Sonnen, a guy who weighs 20 pounds less than him who took a fight on 8 days' notice. So he had no time to train properly. And Sonnen, as a fighter, was willing to take the fight, where John Jones, who was already scheduled to fight that night, had already been training not just for a fight, but a fight against a wrestler with similar skills, just completely bitched out of the fight, and it's ridiculous.
But as we talked about before, it's a sound business decision on his part. I mean, I agree that it's a dick bitch move, but I mean, I can see why he made it, and that kind of relates to your whole hero thing, you know? I mean, people aren't necessarily striving to accomplish anything other than amassing wealth anymore.
But I disagree in the fact that he just burned the bridges with the UFC. He most likely burned the bridges with quite a few of his sponsorships. And he burned the bridges with the fans. Like, I will not support Johnny Bones Jones. He's fighting.
In fairness, you weren't one of his fans to begin with.
I never disliked the guy, though, and I did go see his fights. I did, purchase his pay-per-views, which I will not do for Belfort Jones at the 22nd. And that was a card I was looking forward to because it had Johnson Benavidez. And that fight's going to be amazing. But now it's bumped to the co-main event, and Jones Belfort has been given the headline. It's ridiculous.
I don't know. I mean, I don't really follow people for their personal choices. And, I mean, was it bitch? Yes. Was it completely douchey? I don't think so. I think that part's arguable. I think he was looking out for himself, and I think it's going to cost him as much as it does anybody else, so I just kind of chalk it up to stupidity.
I don't agree with that, though, because, John Jones is a wealthy man. He has a lot of money, he has a lot of sponsorships with Nike, with the UFC. Where it really hurt was the guys in the undercard who were fighting for their rent money, who were fighting, to get those sponsorships opportunities, to get their names known by fighting on this giant card, which wasn't really the strongest card, but it had a giant headline with the Jones-Henderson fight. A lot of people were interested in seeing that, so they would get to see some of these lesser-named guys. I think he turned his back on the locker room, which is another move that I think will hurt his career in the long run, because who's going to step up to, help him when he needs a replacement type deal for a fight that he wants to take, that he needs to take. Say Belfort gets a fluke knockout on him and he has to rebuild his career. People are probably not going to want to fight him based on the decision that he made.
Right, but you're kind of arguing my point for me here. You're talking about all the ways that he hurt himself with this, and that's what I'm saying. Even though he hurt the organization and some of the other fighters, he's still hurting his own career too with this.
That's true. Alright, so our next topic, we're going to talk about some fantasy football. This is your first year into the Guildhall League, Guildhall Fantasy Football that I run. We do an auction draft, so we're going to talk about where our teams are based on the draft, and we'll kind of talk about what makes up our team, and we'll probably come back to this at the end of the season and tell you how our teams did. So the way my league is set up is, like I said, it's an auction draft, which means you get a $200 budget and then you actually do an online auction for the players. Then the way that my playing each week is set up, you get one quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 receivers, a flex position, which could be a running back, a wide receiver, or tight end, and then you get 1 tight end, a defense, kicker. So it's pretty standard besides the flex position that allows you to also use a tight end, which I used a lot into my strategy as My starting lineup is Matt Schaub of the Houston Texans, Ray Rice of the Baltimore Ravens, who cost me a ton, Jonathan Stewart of the Carolina Panthers, Justin Blackmon, the rookie wide receiver for Jacksonville, Kendall Wright, who is, of course, another rookie wide receiver for Tennessee, Jimmy Graham, the standout tight end for New Orleans, Rob Gronkowski, who we know set every single tight end record, so I actually have a double tight end flex. And the reason I chose to do this is tight end typically doesn't give you that many points. But these guys are so far above and beyond the other tight ends that I feel I'm going to get a lot of gain from getting those two, even though obviously my receiving core is hurting for it. Then I went with the Philadelphia Eagles defense special teams, and then Nate Kading, who's coming back from injury. So hopefully he's fully healthy by the time the season starts. And he, of course, is one of the typical fantasy leaders as a kicker, but of course coming back from knee surgery, only playing the opening kickoff of last season is definitely a concern. So could definitely lead to some issues. So for Fearsome, his team consists of Peyton Manning, who of course I got the jersey on today, Arian Foster, the running back for Houston, Frank Gore, the running back for San Francisco, Reggie Wayne, of course longtime Indianapolis Colts receiver, Michael Crabtree, San Francisco, Antonio Gates, who is probably the third, him or Jermichael Finley are, I would say, the third, fourth receiver, or tight ends. Both of them are good, not to the level of Jimmy Graham and Robert Gronkowski. Daniel Thomas is in the flex, the running back for Miami. The Denver Broncos defense, which should be pretty solid this year, especially since they have such a, from the looks, solid offense from the preseason. Manning is looking really good. And then Alex Henry from the Philadelphia kicker, who, as long as Michael Vick stays healthy, should have big numbers as well. So what were your thoughts going into the draft?
Well, basically I just kind of went with a couple players that I liked, and then just kind of looked at the stats and mathematics of it, because I do not keep as close a watch on like the news and the insider info. So I'm mainly going from a statistical standpoint.
That's often a pretty strong strategy. I know a lot of teams that have won leagues in the past that I've played in were the auto draft teams that just took the best available player, so they end up with a really strong team because people are reaching for players that they think are going to be good that don't pay off, where the auto draft just grabs the projected highest player, and a lot of times that works out. I do feel that they have certain players too high in the ESPN polls, at least, because I personally feel Ray Rice is the number one running back. I think he will be the number one points running back by the end of the year, and that's because Arian Foster and LaShawn McCoy, who are 1 and 3, they just can't stay on the field, and I think that's a big issue with a lot of players they have in the top. Like, we're seeing that with Michael Vick already, who has played in 2 preseason games and has left the field in 2 preseason games injured. Michael Vick always ends up going pretty high and for a fair amount of money in the auction draft, but he is always a risk. I mean, he can give you those 40-point games, but how many of those is he actually going to be on the field for?
Yeah, and there's people like that I know are risks just because they're in headlines and news so often.
Yeah. All right, that pretty much wraps up this first episode back, Season 2 of the FearnutZ Hour. As always, make sure to friend us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. This is the FearnutZ Hour signing off.